8 o'clock, time to go over the agenda for today's meeting for Wayne County Board of Commissioners. Invocation, Mr. Camardi, you gonna take care of that?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bell, you gonna take care of the pledge?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any discussion or adjustments to the agenda, Mr. Wood?
Yes, sir. We'd like to add the division of the Pinewood Fire Protection as just
Anyone else, is anything else you have? Mr.
Yes, sir.
Wood?
We would also like to add, under other business, that we need to establish a date for a Board of Commissioners budget retreat. We'd like to do that in January, but I'd like to have a discussion today. We may not arrive at it today, but we need to discuss when we want to do that.
And you want that under what now?
Other business, or new business, excuse
New
me.
business.
And then the other thing is, we do need, well, you have it down here, we definitely need to have a closed session on a couple of items.
Okay.
And I believe that's everything that we wanted to add. I will be giving you a report under my report on the auction that we held yesterday on the farm leases, and so we'll give you an update on that.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor,
Mr. Wood, are we able to have someone here? I'd asked for a report on the Dewberry report to progress.
Yeah, we talked to them. It'll need to be the first meeting in December. The guy we need to have come, we couldn't get it done today. He can't make it on the 18th, so we got it on the first meeting in December.
Okay.
But Connie has talked to them, and they are moving forward with everything. So,
Okay.
and he'll give you a complete update at that point.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bell.
Mr. Woods, in the paper yesterday, I saw, I just glimpsed it where it said the city was going to consider taking over some farm departments. I didn't read the whole article. What were they talking about?
That is part of this division of Pinewood Fire Protection District.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
and we're gonna give you a detailed
I got
report
it
on
now.
that. Okay. And after we go through the agenda, if you like, I can go ahead and start on that. Well, I guess really we need to wait till the 9 o'clock meeting on
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
So if we do finish, if we could go ahead into the closed
Closed
session,
session,
we can do
okay.
that.
All right, is that all the adjustments you've got?
Marcia, that's it, isn't it? Yes, sir,
Okay,
that's
any-
it.
Any of the board members have anything else? Okay, and we have the approval of minutes. Mr. Wood, if you would take over from here on with what's on the agenda, please.
Okay. We have 2 public hearings. One is on the solar energy facilities ordinance. We've gone over that, I think, for 4 meetings. Everybody's ready, I believe, to vote on that. And of course, it requires a public hearing, and then you can vote on the ordinance immediately after. If it passes unanimously, it'll go into effect right away. If not, it has to have a second vote. Isn't that correct? The second.
Could I make a comment on that?
Yes.
I spoke to a council member from Mount Olive, and they are being threatened with a lawsuit over their moratorium on the solar. And they just simply were putting a hold on it until we took some action.
Right.
But evidently, the Utilities Commission is threatening to sue Mount Olive over that. So hopefully we can make some action on this today and get them.
Right, and I had told the town manager that it was on our agenda for this meeting, and that we should have it resolved shortly.
Okay.
And he's acting right, I was told, so. And Pikeville's looking for you to act too.
Everybody's waiting, huh?
That's
Okay,
right.
we'll try to.
And that's a good sign, because ideally, what we'd like is, if they were to pass something closer, identical, that would be great. And
Yeah.
we have, have all of those areas covered. Then you have a public hearing on a proposed amendment to the Wayne County zoning ordinance and subdivision ordinance to allow accessory structures to be within 5 feet of a rear or side property line. I believe we discussed this at the last meeting, and you came to a consensus on that. So I believe we're ready to go with that. Again, if it passes unanimously, it goes into effect immediately. If not, you have to bring it back for a second reading, which would be the second meeting in November, and then it can pass by a simple majority. There's no unfinished business. On the consent agenda, we have several applications for present use value, elderly or disabled property tax exclusion, and disabled veteran exclusion. These are from Alan Lumpkin, and all are in order. They were simply late with filing them. Under new business, we have appointment of Wayne County member to the Highway 70 Corridor Commission. I gave you a memo on that. This regards the city of Goldsboro making an appointment. As I said in the memo, you recall we had appointed 4. We can appoint up to 5 if the city doesn't make an appointment. The city would have had to pay over $6,000 to join. What I proposed to the city manager is that they pay $5,000, which saves them some money. And that would be part of the $25,000 we had to pay, and it's the equivalent of 1/5 of the amount, and they would have 1/5 of the membership. They have done that, and I told him that, my recommendation would be that we agree to appoint whomever they selected if they're willing to pay the $5,000. And they have recommended Councilmember Chuck Allen. So if you do that, we've already paid the $25,000, but they would pay us $5,000 reimbursement, and then, we'd forward that appointment. We'd have our full 5 votes on the commission, and the end result would be the county's paid $20,000 and the city's paid $5,000. Okay.
Seems fair.
The next one is to declare 601 Van Street, Goldsboro, North Carolina, as surplus property and authorize sale of property to the highest bidder. You have the details in your packet. This was pretty much handled by the city. And as you see, we would have to pay our half of the advertising cost. And we've included the property card for you. As you can see, there's not a lot of value to this property. But what it does by doing this is it gets it back on the tax rolls. And that's always the goal in these, is to get it straightened up, get the tax liens taken care of, and get it back on the property tax rolls.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, let me go back to the appointment of the Wayne County member on the Highway 70 Corridor Commissioner. We're going to need to have a motion on that to appoint Chuck Allen as the 5th member representing the city of Goldsboro.
That's correct.
Do we need in that motion conditional upon the city paying or reimbursing the county $5,000?
$5,000 for the membership fee. Yes, that's perfect.
Okay,
That's correct.
but we should do that today. Whoa, that's waking us up.
Write him up for that.
I think Ed's still celebrating.
My fault. Okay.
Okay, the next item is budget amendments. Of course, Ms. Holt will go over those with you. Then we would add the Pinewood division of property, and then we would talk about the retreat date. And that's all of the new business, and then it would just be public comments, and then my comments, your comments, and the closed session.
Anyone else have anything?
Mr. Chairman, I move we go into closed session.
I have a motion on the floor, we'll go into closed session. All in favor, should slide a right hand.
And it's for the purpose,
Okay,
it's
Mr.
for the
Parker.
for the purpose
Sorry
of
about that.
taking a position as to the purchasing of property and to consult me in order to serve attorney-client privilege.
That's it. I think that's it.
We got our reasons anyway.
It's 9 o'clock, time to conduct the business of the Wayne County Board of Commissioners. I would like to ask everyone if you have a cell phone to either cut it off or put it on silent mode.
Look again.
Uh,
South Force.
Mr. Camardi, you gonna take care of the invocation, please?
Let us pray. Almighty God, we come to thank you this morning. First, for our health of body and mind, dear Lord, our strength of character and conviction, and also, dear Heavenly Father, to help us to focus on the duty of the Board of Commissioners. Almighty God, we ask guidance for our thoughtfulness, for our words spoken, for our action taken. And finally, dear God, we please help us to hold our employees, our first responders, our troops, and our most precious thoughts in, dear Heavenly Father, in your hands. And dear Heavenly Father, finally, we ask you to lend guidance to our national leaders as they also make judgments to protect our safety, health, and welfare, and all these things. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
May we stand and face the flag? Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mr. Camardi, Mr. Bell. Mr. Wood, any adjustments to the agenda?
Yes, sir. We'd like to add the division of the Pinewood Fire Protection District. That would be number 4 under new business. We would also like to add number 5 under new business, which would be to discuss a date and time and location for the Board of Commissioners budget retreat. We'd like to do that sometime in January. And we already had the closed session, so I think all of that's taken care of. Marcia, is there anything else? I believe that's everything.
Anyone else have any adjustments to the agenda? Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the October 21st, 2014 meeting?
So moved.
Have a motion on the floor that we approve the minutes of the October 21st meeting. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. We've got about 5 minutes.
Oh, what she's suggesting is we go ahead and do the consent agendas because the public hearings were scheduled for 9:15.
Okay. All right, consent agenda, Mr. Wood?
You have these various applications, which we discussed at the 8 o'clock meeting. They've all been reviewed by the tax administrator, and he's recommending approval. Again, these are ones where people were entitled to it. Had they filed timely, they would have gotten it automatically, but because they filed late, the law requires that you review it and decide if you want to grant them or not. And so the staff's recommendation is that you grant them.
Pleasure of the board.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mann.
make a motion we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor should sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
We can go on to new business.
Let's go on and take care of item number 1 on our new business. Mr. Wood?
Mr. Chairman, on page 22 of the agenda package, you have a memorandum from me making a recommendation on this. And it says, as you recall, we have membership in the U.S. 70 Corridor Commission, and the dues are $25,000 per year. And that also entitles you to appoint 5 members to the commission. In the past few months, you've appointed 4 of the 5, and we were waiting on Goldsboro to determine if they wanted to participate. and have the fifth vote. Municipalities can join but have to pay over $6,000 to join. And they can then request that the BOC appoint someone of their choice. I discussed this with the city manager and suggested a compromise that rather than the county pay the full $25,000, then the city pay another $6,000, that they recommend an appointee to us and agree to pay the $5,000 of our membership. So in other words, they would pay 1/5 of the cost of membership and get 1/5 of the votes. He recently took this to the Goldsboro City Council, and they've agreed to do this if we will appoint Councilmember Chuck Allen, who is their recommendation on this. So my recommendation to you is that you agree to appoint Councilmember Allen and reduce our cost of membership in the US 70 Quarter Commission by $5,000.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Daugherty.
I'm pleased to make the motion that we appoint Councilman Chuck Allen as the city representative, conditional upon the city paying us or reimbursing the county $5,000.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor. Any other discussion? Mr. Payton.
Just to comment, Mr. Allen has been directly involved in transportation for a long time, and this is an appropriate referral from the city, and I'm going to support this motion, and thank you for making it, Mr. Daugherty.
Anyone else have any comments? If no other comments, you've heard the motion from Mr. Daugherty. All in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Ma'am? Okay.
Just keep going.
Item number 2 under new business, Mr. Wood.
Mr. Chairman, this is to declare 601 Van Street in Goldsboro as surplus property and authorize the sale of property to the highest bidder. It's in keeping with the same splitting of cost as we've had with Goldsboro on other properties. And as you see, it'll be sold to the highest bidder in the amount of $3,000, and we would pay half of the advertising cost on it.
I think it's said the tax value was something like, what, 1,900?
1,900,
Yeah.
so we're actually coming out pretty well on it.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
I make a motion that we accept this request as recommended by county manager.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor on item number 2. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor of item number 2 under new business, show of sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
9:15.
Okay.
We can go ahead.
Mr. Wood, if you would take care of the public hearings, please.
Yes, sir. I'm going to call on Connie Price to go over both of these. So Connie, if you'd go ahead.
Chairman, I guess you'll go one at a time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we'll do the one on the solar energy facility first. We advertise for this meeting. We're making 2 amendments. One will be to amend the Wayne County zoning ordinance under establishment of uses, adding solar energy facilities to the list of uses allowed in the following zones: light industry, airport, heavy industry, airport industry, and as a special use in residential agriculture 20 and residential agriculture 30. Also, at the same time, we'll be considering today the adoption of the solar energy facilities ordinance in Wayne County. This will be a standalone ordinance that will cover the remaining parts of the county that are not zoned, and it would deal with the location and appearance of solar energy facilities in the areas of the county. It would be require review by Seymour Johnson Base Commander. It would establish 100-foot setback from residents and churches, 60-foot setback from public road, fencing around the property, and a site plan approval by the Wayne County Planning Board, and landscaping in residential areas.
You've heard Mr. Price's comments. Any comments from the public? This is a public hearing. If anyone has anything, you step forward and give your name and address and phone number. If no one does, do we vote on this now,
Close.
or?
Need to close the hearing.
Close the hearing.
Okay, this public hearing, on item number 1 under the public hearing section is now closed.
You can vote on it.
You want to go ahead and vote on it now, or get this other public hearing out of the way?
I'd go ahead and take care of this now.
What's the pleasure of the board on, item number 1?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor?
I make a motion that we accept the ordinance regulating the operation and maintenance of solar energy facilities in Wayne County, North Carolina, as proposed.
And amending the zoning ordinance is set out on page 1 of your agenda.
Okay, yeah, and zoning ordinance, set up as page 1 of our agenda. All right, we got it?
Okay, you got it, Marshall?
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Doyle?
I want to applaud the work of our planner and this board, because we spent a great deal of time and effort of going through this and amending it to where it's more, in my opinion, more user-friendly for the citizens of Wayne County. And I think that this board has just done a real good job of coming up with this ordinance.
Anyone have any comments?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor?
I just wanted to remind everyone, this has gone before the planning board, and they approve what we're acting on today. Is that right? Okay, just a reminder to the public. Thank you.
Anyone else? No other discussion? All in favor of the motion, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, just a note, we'll have, the county clerk will send a copy of this to every municipality, because I know of at least 2 that are waiting on this before they make a decision. As y'all know, Mount Olive and Pikeville. But I think it'd be good to send it to all of them, because they may want to pattern theirs after it. So, Marcia, if you'd make a note to do that, please.
Okay. Item number 2, Mr. Will.
The next one is a proposed amendment to the Wayne County zoning ordinance and Wayne County subdivision ordinance to allow accessory structures to be within 5 feet of a rear or side property line. Connie, is there anything you want to go over on that?
I will add that I've been, dealt with a couple of builders in the past week who are waiting on this to be approved. They wanted to build and didn't want to be 25 feet off the rear line, or didn't want to be 10 feet off the side. They wanted to be a little bit closer. So we are having people that have an interest in this being adopted by the board. In addition, as Mr. Wood said, it would require accessory structures to be 5 feet from the side or rear line. No accessory structure on a corner lot shall extend beyond the side building line of the principal building. All accessory structures shall be located on side or rear yards. Structures located within 5 feet of the principal building shall be considered part of the principal building. And the total size of the accessory structure shall occupy more than 30% of the rear yard.
Any questions from Mr. Price? Because this also has been discussed by the planning board, correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and this is their recommendation.
Yes.
Any questions? Pleasure of the board.
Motion to approve.
I'm sorry. Public hearing is open for,
Oh, that's right.
been a long day and night.
Yeah, I understand.
Public hearing is now open for item number 2, for zoning ordinance, Wayne County subdivision ordinance to allow accessory structures to be within 5 feet of the rear or side property lines. The public hearing is now open. If anyone has any comments, come forward and state your name, address, and phone number, please. No one has any comments? The public hearing is closed. Now, what's the pleasure of the board?
Motion to approve.
I have a motion on the floor. We approve, but, public hearing number 2. Any comments?
Just a quick comment, Mr. Chairman, and that is that I think this is good that we have this amendment, and that so everyone's aware, most municipalities allow accessory buildings to be within 5 foot of property line. So it's not a matter that we're going beyond what has already been tried in the area.
Anyone have any comments? If not, what's the pleasure of the board?
Just do.
Okay.
Bill made a motion.
I made the motion.
Have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? Any other discussion? It's the pleasure of the board. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Y'all gonna have to excuse me today.
It's a late night work, Wayne.
I may have to turn it over to Mr. Camardi.
You're doing fine.
And he's already let his phone ring this morning, so I don't know whether he'll be any better or not.
Yeah, I think we left off at budget amendments on the new business.
We did, and there's no unfinished business to take care of. Budget amendments, Ms. Hope.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We thank.
Your first budget amendment is for the Social Services Department. It's a total of $2,832.57. It's to anticipate and appropriate Progress Energy and Piedmont Natural Gas funds for heating assistance.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion on the floor for budget amendment 133. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries.
Your next budget amendment is number 134. It's for the Wayne County Development Alliance. It is to appropriate funds to reimburse the WCDA for $30,000 in option payments on the Veterans Cemetery approved by the Board of Commissioners 4/10/13.
Motion to approve, Mr. Chairman.
Have a motion on the floor that we approve budget amendment 134. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Doherty.
I think we're having a groundbreaking out there shortly, aren't we?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow. Well, that is right around the corner, isn't it?
2 o'clock. Or you're about it too, by the way.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mayor.
Just to refresh the memory of myself and others, this property was actually owned by the Wayne County Development Alliance. And that's why this is coming into play, the transfer of the property over to the state. Is that correct?
Right.
That's part of this transaction.
This, the option, this was the money that was paid to the Ivy family.
For options
Option.
over
And
the
then
years.
when- then it was
Three times.
bought by the county.
Yes.
They had assigned that option to the county. The county then purchased the property and turned it over to the state.
Right.
The WCDA owns some additional property out there that they conveyed to the county.
Yes.
That was then conveyed, but the option money really was the money that was paid to the Ivy.
This part, and that was about 3 years, and we
Right.
had the option at $10,000.
That they had
And we
extended
we
the option.
just a reimbursement of that.
So we're just
As we
reimbursing
had promised,
them.
that was in their minutes. That-
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
And also, just so the public can know, the reason that WCDA was even involved in it to start with, initially, this was to help restrict what was going on in the flat path at Seymour Johnson to help, protect the base. And at the time that the WCDA purchased it, I don't think a cemetery had even been thought of. But as time went on and the adjoining property become available, that's when some of the previous board members got involved, and actually this was started long before this seating board was seated. But that was how the WCDA got involved in it. Any other comments? I have any, all in favor, who made the motion?
I did.
Mr. Mayo. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries.
Okay, number 135 and 136 are for the Health Department, so I'm going to do them together. 135 is $1,000 to anticipate and appropriate ST prevention funds awarded by the North Carolina Division of Public Health. Number 136 is for $890 decrease to adjust the decrease in state funding for family planning.
Mr. Chairman, I move adoption of Budget Amendment 135 and 136.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? No discussion. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
The next four are for the Sheriff's Department, and if you want me to stop, just let me know. Okay, number 139 is for $121.88 to anticipate and appropriate controlled substance funds. Number 142 is for the Sheriff's to $7,456.15 to appropriate fingerprint funds for a shelter for the annex. Number 143, $2,000 to anticipate and appropriate donations for the Sheriff's Fund. And number 144, $5,585 to appropriate fingerprint funds for Celebrite equipment. For investigations, old equipment cannot be updated.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Camardi,
I move to approve the aforementioned budget amendments.
I have a motion on the floor. Any discussion? If no discussion, all in favor show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous.
Number 141 is for OES. It's a $30,000 to appropriate fund balance for Ebola training and equipment.
I make a motion that we adopt this budget amendment. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to point out that, if we don't end up using this on Ebola cases, that a lot of this equipment still can be used. It's turnout gear and things like that. So it's a little heavier gauge of what we would normally use, but it's not, in other words, it wouldn't be just wasted if we don't have an Ebola case.
Because that's basically what Mr. Wood is saying. This equipment does not have a shelf life. I mean, it can be used years down the road. And also, I would like to mention that I have talked to some of the people at the hospital, and they commended the county for spending this money for this, because they see possibly that there's going to be a need for it. We've already had one case that did turn out negative at Duke. I mean, when all of this planning and all was going on, the discussion was mentioned, or the word Duke come up, because, I mean, it's a leading medical facility on the East Coast, and it was just a matter of time. And lo and behold, just a few weeks later, there was a possible case. Luckily, it did turn out to be negative. And I look at this kind of equipment as kind of like a fire department buying a $350,000 truck that you may need. And this equipment, I felt, is quite necessary if we do need it. Any other discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Martin.
as I read the request reason, it says Ebola training. I would hope that training has already taken place,
It has.
and we're
It
just
has.
Yeah, and a lot of it,
It's an ongoing training process every day.
and
I
it's
just want to
training
public-
and supplies.
I just want the public to understand, we weren't waiting
No, no,
for
no,
this to
no.
happen. The training has already taken place. and-
We've already done
And,
that,
so they'd be
and
assured
and
that-
I would just like to commend the hospital also. I think they've worked extremely well with our people, and I think we're in good shape going forward with it.
And also the health department. I mean,
And
it's
the
been a
health
joint,
department's been involved.
a joint effort from several agencies that's
That's
come
right.
together, and everything has run smooth.
That's right.
Any other discussion?
Well, just because I wonder this, and I just like to ask this question for some public consumption. Is there a mechanism set in place that the hospitals and law enforcement and first responders or whomever would be made aware that the potential for people coming into our area, we would have some kind of knowledge about it rather than just purely having to respond to something that we find out afterwards? Is there some mechanism set up in place?
Actually, typically what it would,
Let's let Mel.
Mel, go ahead.
Let's let Mel comment, please.
Good morning, gentlemen.
So the question is sort of, what do you know or when do you know it?
Okay, what we've put in place, and we put this in place a few weeks ago when this all started in, for us as a county, the typical is going to be a 911 call that comes in. So we have in place certain questions. There's certain call types in 911 that when you call and you say, I've got a fever, that's going to trigger the dispatchers to ask additional questions. Those additional questions would be, have you been out of the country? If they say yes, that's going to trigger another set of questions. These questions, if they follow the algorithm and it shows that this could be a possible Ebola case, then we have a mechanism to do a silent dispatch to a crew, as you were asking, that we've already trained. We have certain crews set up at each shift, and we have a truck that is specifically set up just for a transport of this nature. That they would be dispatched out, silent dispatch, along with a shift supervisor. They would gear up in the PPE that we have purchased through CDC guidelines and guidances to respond to this. They would then initiate their care and their questioning and then transport to the hospital.
So let me take the conversation back up the road just a
Okay.
little way before it gets here. If someone is traveling into Raleigh-Durham Airport and they have been asked the appropriate questions, were you out of the state, or out of the nation, were you in the critical areas around the world? And the answer to that is yes, we were. And I was just wondering if the question would go on to say, where are you on your way to? And they said Wayne County, and since the sheriff is here and you're here, I would just be wondering if there was some sort of notification given, and not to infringe on anyone's rights, but some kind of notification given that yes, citizen so-and-so has been in a critical area, and yes, they've been asked the appropriate questions, and no, there's no problem, but yes, they're on their way to such and such a area. Is that too infringing on folks' rights?
No,
The
and
need
I
to know?
believe that would go through tracing with the health department. If somebody were to answer those questions positively, then that would go through the state health department to our local health departments, and then that would be disseminated out to our staff, sheriff's office, and the health hospital.
I think, and certainly for my, I think that's just some information that the public would want to be assured of, that we're not sitting here, I don't want to use the wrong word, but maybe playing catch rather than knowing that there might be a ball in there,
No, and what we've tried to disseminate to the public, what we've asked the newspaper to disseminate is, we depend on our citizens and for everyone to answer those questions honestly and as accurately as possible, because that's how we're going to base our response on, is an honest and accurate account. We've had one account in Wayne County that was a negative, but the questions were asked and answered honestly. So that's what we ask. If they'll answer them honestly and accurately, then we can base our response on that. And that's the same with any county and the state, for that matter.
And also, just for public record, in conversation with emergency management people in other counties, in meetings that's gone on for the last month or so, from what we're hearing is that Wayne County is prepared as good or better than any other county in the state. That's what we're hearing from other agencies. We were very proactive in getting things going.
Yes, sir.
And I'd like to thank Mel and his staff and the hospital and the health department in jumping on this right from the beginning, with Mr. Wood's blessings. They went through the proper channels to make all this happen.
And then I will say, the last conference I was in about 3 weeks ago, we were actually sharing our plans and procedures that we put in place with other counties. So we've pretty much been a model for some of the other counties in place. So we are prepared. We've did our initial training 2 weeks ago. We now have the PAPRs that we have purchased. The training on those was yesterday, and we have 13 EMS paramedics that are training as of this moment. We're doing the training outside the Jeffries building, so at lunchtime you should see the looks we get from the people going to Toreros when they see all of us walking around in these suits. We do have signs saying training, so everybody knows that it's training. But they are training. We have our field staff are getting the best training. And the good thing is, like the chairman said, we are training along with the hospital. They have their staff, their nurses in the training along with us. So we're all training on the same equipment, the same policies, the same procedures. So when we do that handoff from EMS to the hospital, it's going to be a seamless handoff.
Any other comments? We have a motion on the floor. It's the pleasure of the board. All in favor, show sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous for budget amendment number 141.
That completes the budget amendments.
Thank you, Ms. Holt. Okay, item number 4, Pinewood Fire Department.
Mr. Chairman, I'm just going to make a few remarks, and I'm going to turn it over to Brian Taylor, our fire marshal. Just to put this in context for you, if you remember, the Pinewood Volunteer Fire Department has voted to dissolve. And the primary reason what's driving that is that there have been several annexations through the years, and as that property was annexed into the city, it cut into the tax base of this fire department. So they've reached a point where they feel like the best move for them is to dissolve it. So the issue before you is, as part of that dissolution process, we've got to make sure that we have transferred all of the properties that are in that remaining Pinewood district to other fire departments within the county so that that coverage does not lapse. And what we're trying to do is do everything, I believe, on December 1, would make the transfer over. So what you're going to see is a map which our staff has prepared. They've reviewed it with all of the affected fire chiefs, and they're in agreement with it. And then, but before we get to that, I want to go over some of what was in the paper yesterday, because the article is incorrect, and I want to get that straightened out. The article indicated that we were trying to merge several of these departments with City of Goldsboro's fire department, and that's incorrect. What we had proposed to the city was a 15-year contract, and where it made sense in terms of a response time being quicker from the city to some of these areas, we were proposing that in addition to giving some of these properties, putting it in one of these other volunteer fire districts, we were going to look at the city to contract with them if they were closer on some of the other properties. And that was the proposal. Where the difference came in and why, and what we're recommending is that you not enter into that agreement with the city. Our proposal to them was that we would give them the same rate of taxation. We would give them the tax money that was generated by those properties using the same tax rate as the fire district they're in now, or the one they would be assigned to in the future when Pinewood was no longer available, assuming that we had no contract with the city. Well, most of our fire district tax rates are somewhere in the 5.5 to about 7.5 cent tax rate position. What the city came back with on Monday when they discussed it was they would do what the current rate was for the current year, which is finishing up the Pinewood tax collection, but that in all future years they wanted it to go to 12.7 cent, which is more than double what many of our tax rates are. And so that's why we're recommending that you drop that proposal to go to look at contracting some of these smaller areas with the city. So our recommendation is you drop that, and then you go to the division of this property as Brian Taylor is going to go over with you now. So, but I wanted to clarify, it was never any proposal to merge 5 or 6 of our fire departments with the Goldsboro Fire Department. It was to contract, which the law allows for, counties can contract with cities and vice versa, for fire protection in some selected areas. And that's all that was about. Brian does have, this is the map of how we're going to propose that you do it. Brian, also behind that has a map of what we propose to the city. So we're going to go over that with you as well, just so you understand what the proposal was. But again, just to reemphasize, we are not recommending the proposal with the city. We're recommending going with this dissolution plan and assigning these properties as Brian's going to go over with you now. So, Brian?
Good morning. Yeah, if you'll pull that other map up, we'll go over it right quick before we move forward. As Marcia gets this next map up, just to kind of show you what we were proposing to the city. As Mr. Wood has stated, it wasn't ever proposed for the city to take over any of the volunteer departments or their whole districts. It was just certain portions. And the map that's up right now, and I think you guys have that in your packet, the green section shows what the city limits is today. And these pockets, if you will, of these different colors associated around the city and within the city are representation of some of the areas that the volunteers are covering today. And as you see, there's several of these areas within the city limits itself, and that's what we were proposing for the city to cover those areas that they were the closest to. And with the meetings that's transpired this week, we have decided to forego that. But I thought it was important for you to see this map so you could see exactly what we were talking about. We weren't talking about extending the fire department for the city to go out into the county. It was just to cover those little pockets within the city that the city had not annexed for whatever reason through the years that had created some of these issues. So that's what we had originally proposed and originally was looking at, and I just thought it was important for you guys to be able to see that map and see exactly what we were talking about there.
And also, Brian, just for the public's information for the public and this board, this is not something that has just been talked about in the last few weeks. This has been an ongoing conversation for years.
Yes.
Many years, at least 10 or 15 years, when there was pockets that the city did not annex, and it was questioned, and this has been an ongoing conversation or thought, and it had just come to the point that we could sit down and talk to some of the city people, and basically it was a good idea, but it just didn't work. Right. But this is not something that has just come on the table. This is an ongoing process that's been going on for years.
And there's been several there's been a couple of the fire departments that's got some areas like Rosewood. They cover the intersection, basically, if you will, where 795 and 581 come together there, Ash Street.
Can you point out the color on that map?
Yeah, it's hard for me to tell which color it is, but
Yeah, next time you need a different
contrasting
colors.
I need a pointer.
Biggest pointer, man. There you go.
I'll have to work on my map man behind me to get that there.
That's the white
But
pocket.
yeah, that area there that Mr. Wood just pointed out is the Rosewood area, and they had expressed concern a few years ago, or not concern, but interest in letting the city just cover that. And at that time, that kind of started the idea rolling. In the same way with Marmac, Mr. Wood, if you'll point out the yellow ones right below that, that's the Marmac area that Marmac's covering right now, which is Brick Street and a couple areas right behind Edwards Truck Service and those kind of places.
And by the way, on the map, we have put Goldsboro's fire departments in here.
Yeah.
Those red dots, so you can see, because again, the issue was, how could we best respond
Yeah.
in a town?
And they had, like I said, they had expressed interest in that in years past, so it made sense to me with the dissolution of Pinewood. It's time to look at it. Let's look at it. Let's see if we can make it work. We tried that and we can't reach an agreement at this point. So we're gonna move forward with just
Let me
leaving
point
those
out-
areas alone.
Let me point out one other area that I think particularly shows the kind of problem we're trying to correct for. This area right here, in this Royal Avenue?
That's Royal
Yes, sir.
Avenue, yes, sir.
Okay. That's the Goldsboro's fire station. This is an island that was never annexed, for whatever reason. You know, our people have to come in from outside the city, into the city, fight a fire here, and they're sitting right there.
That was my question.
Mr. Mayor.
That was my question, is that in some cases, the volunteer fire departments are going right past a city fire station to get to these
Right.
properties.
And that's the kind of thing we were trying to clean up. Because
Yeah.
from a citizen's perspective, you know, if your property's on fire, you don't care what the name is on the door. What you care about is how quick can that engine get there?
Yeah.
And so that's what we were, to me, that's a perfect example of what we were trying to accomplish with this. But we just couldn't come to terms on the money. So that's where we're at.
Okay, move on.
Has anybody got any questions on that particular part? Okay, Marcia, if you'll pull it in the map up for me. This next map is the map that shows, it's titled, Proposed Division of Pinewood Fire District, or Pinewood District. This is actually Pinewood's district as it is today. All these little pockets, all these different colors, that is the Pinewood Fire District. What these colors represent, or what we're proposing, Belfast. Belfast is the green area, that this portion of the Belfast, or the Pinewood Fire District, would be merged into the Belfast Fire Protection District. The largest color there, which is brown, that would all go to the Sawston Fire Department. The light blue in the top left corner would go to Pate Town. The blue that Marcia's got a little hand on now, that would be New Hope. And then at the bottom of the map, that would be Elroy. I have been in touch with each one of these fire departments, discussed the areas that we were looking at, and every one of the fire departments in agreement to what's being presented today.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor.
Did I understand correctly that Belfast actually lost some area?
No.
No,
They did
not in this proposal. In the original proposal, we were looking at cleaning up some of those pockets
Yeah.
within the city,
Right.
and they would have lost a little area.
Okay.
But that is no longer the case, and they're actually, Belfast is gonna be covering the area of Wayne Country Day Road, Wayne Moore Drive, the properties across from the community college, and so they're actually picking up additional areas.
Okay. Thank you
No,
for
no,
clarifying.
no department is losing anything now. Everybody is
Okay,
gaining.
that was under our previous discussion.
The previous discussion.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
that's
Okay,
right.
Thank you.
And we should point out that nobody's fire rating will
Yeah.
be adversely affected.
Yeah, everybody's fire rating. Pinewood currently has a Class 6 fire protection class for the homeowners insurance, for insurance purposes. And every one of these districts that we're proposing to absorb this area either has a Class 6 or lower, which is a better grade than what the 6 is. I think we have three departments that'll be below a 6, so there'll be some savings there. As we come forward in the future and merge these into the fire service districts for tax purposes, if I'm not mistaken, everyone in Pinewood's district will receive a little bit of a tax break of some sort. It
That's true.
may be a half cent to a whole cent.
Mr. Doherty.
Ed, did you have a question on the map?
Well, I had a question, related to the idea that, having to pass a fire volunteer having to pass, go to an area which is close to the city, keeping in mind that, like Mr. Wood said, the homeowner wants the person who can respond to it the quickest. But taking it a step further, Mr. Wood, had anyone considered that the increase that the city would be looking for to bring it up to where the rest of their folk are, could it possibly be offset by its savings on the insurance policy, because you get it's an advantage for a person's home to be close to,
Well,
to,
when, if
see what I'm
you,
getting at?
and these are the experts, so they can address that, but let me address it quickly. Really, beyond about a 5 on residential, it really doesn't matter on your rates.
There's a big difference between a 9 and say a 5. But from a 5 to a 1, and I don't, what, Greensboro, is it still number, that's the only station, Greensboro is the only fire department in the state that's got a 1. So anything from a 5 down to a 1, the insurance premiums changes very little. It's from 5 up.
That was what I was,
It changes.
that settles
No, it's
that.
an excellent question.
That-
So it would not offset. So they're wanting more than double what our rates would be. And
Well,
this
you've
is
answered
saving-
my question, because I was just wondering if, over time, a homeowner would balance the sheet by savings in one area, although he may have to pay more, he would balance the sheet plus the fact that they might keep his house from burning down.
And
just
let
trying
me
to
make
look at
one
it.
other comment, that on structure fires, a lot of times Goldsboro is going to be coming on mutual aid anyway.
And we've got mutual aid agreements. I mean, we're gonna go help them and they gonna come help us.
That's right.
All right, satisfied.
Mr. Doherty.
My question is, I mean, with the dissolution of Pinewood, I think the first question I have is there going to be some decommissioning of the fire station that maybe we can thank those volunteers that have been so involved with Pinewood through the years, to acknowledge their contribution to the community?
Well, at the next meeting, we will have for you an agreement with Pinewood about the dissolution and where the assets and where the liabilities go.
Okay.
We're working through that now.
All right, so we're going to be discussing that.
We'll
at
be
our next-
discussing that. And I will tell you, as far as the station, we actually use that station as an EMS station for us. So we'll be taking that over.
Well, I'm just hoping that we do acknowledge the contribution of
Oh,
those
absolutely.
volunteers through the years, because they have given so much to the community.
That's right.
So I just wanted to make that point. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else? Any comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Mayor?
I wanted to just point out, at one time, a year or so ago, as a result of some of these mergers that have taken place, which has been voluntarily and collaboration, we had at one time some areas in Wayne County that were, their rating, insurance rating was a 9. Is that correct?
That's correct. We
That-
still have some of those
that-
areas today.
Okay, but a lot of the merging that's going on, one of the reasons too is that will help that situation eventually, hopefully. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. I have some citizens that have been asking questions over the last year or so. They sold a house in the city and moved into the county, and they're at a 9, and they're appalled that they're having to pay double, home insurance. So I just want to point that out to the public, that this is one of the benefits that will come as far as consolidating and being more efficient as far as the volunteer fire department.
And Mr. Mayor, you're correct. It did clear up part of that in the county, but it did not clear it all up. But if we can get in further discussion with possibly some other mergers or something,
Yes.
hopefully that would correct it. But we've corrected a big part of that issue, but the issue is still there.
Mm-hmm.
Is that basically right? Mike?
That's correct.
Any other discussions? If no other discussion or questions, I made a motion that we adopt the, make a motion to approve the following fire protection districts to absorb the Pinewood, and that would be Elroy, New Hope, Sawston, Belfast, and Painttown. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, sir.
And I'll put that in form of a motion. No other discussion?
Yeah, can I
Go ahead.
With the way fire protection districts work, I'm presenting to you to adopt them as the Belfast 5 Mile Fire Protection District, the Paytown Fire Protection District 5 Mile, the Sawston Fire Protection District 6 Mile, the Elroy Fire Protection District 6 Mile, and also the New Hope W Fire Protection District 6 Mile. And the reason we have to do that, that has to be specifically in the motion to do that in order for especially the folks in the 6 Mile area, because there are some 6 Mile areas that these departments cover. It's not proposed that Sawston would have any at this point. They originally, when their fire protection district was done a few years back, we just done it as a 5 mile. Now that they're picking up this additional area, if roads change or anything like that, they may have in the future some 6 Mile area. So the motion needs to read exactly how we're going to approve these districts for what mileage.
But presently, everything falls within 5 miles, correct?
In what we're proposing to get into Pinewood.
Right.
But what we're doing, because when we, like, I'm going to use Elroy for an example. Elroy already has 6 Mile area, so does New Hope. We're changing their current fire protection district map, so we have to reapprove it with the current Pinewood stuff in it as a 6 Mile map to make it whole.
So you need just to add the mileage.
I need to amend my motion. Elroy Fire Protection District 6 miles, New Hope W Fire Protection District 6 miles, Sawston Fire Protection District 6 miles, Belfast Fire Protection District 5 miles, Paytown Fire Protection District 5 miles.
That's correct.
Yep.
And I made that in the form of a motion. If there's no other discussion,
Just one quick question.
Mr. Pate, sorry.
And just to follow up, to be sure, you said that would not impact any insurance rates going to 6 miles.
The only, what the 6 Mile
That unit
rate
5 mile
does,
thing was kind of a
everything
standard.
within 5 mile is whatever the rating is. I'll use Sawston, for example. Sawston is class 6, so everything within 5 miles is class 6. If they end up with any mileage that's over 5, between 5 and 6, they would be a class 9. It's not proposed this time that any of that would happen in the Sawston district, but you know, with new roads being built and roads being closed and that kind of thing, it could happen because we've extended their district.
With the current, opening of the bypass, that's not gonna happen because of that. You're talking about something that may happen in the future.
That's already figured in
Okay,
in
just
what
wanted
we
to be
looked
sure.
at.
Thank you
Yes.
so much.
Any other discussion? If not, we have a motion on the floor. All in favor, share sign of right hand. Motion carries unanimous. Thank you, Brian.
Mr. Chairman, if I could, I'd just like to thank you, Mel and Brian and their staffs for all the work we've put into this. It's taken quite a lot of effort to get to this point. We appreciate the work that y'all done on it.
You need to take a break. Yeah, we got to go to public comment. Okay, all right.
He's got that right.
Well, we
We're ready for public
public
comment.
comments. It's 10 o'clock, time for public comment section. If anyone has any public comments to make, please come forward, state your name, address, and phone number, and limit your time to 4 minutes, please.
Tom Drew, P.O. Box 587, Goldsboro, North Carolina, 27533. First, to quote an unsigned editorial from the News Argus yesterday. Towards the bottom, it says, "The bottom line is that this type of campaigning is simply not good for finding the best people to lead this country. In 2 years, we are going to have to decide who will take this country forward. Before then, we better have a better way to figure that out. There is a better way. that was initiated in August of '92. And currently is censored in the News Argus since November 6th of '01. Got a title called the Bonneville Project, creating a level playing field, a paper form to enable the citizens of Wayne County to be the most informed voters on earth. A paper form that you didn't have to leave your door to subscribe or subscribe to be informed by all and to inform all. Of the 5 known core principles of democracy, first 3 are the legs of a stool called democracy. Is for democracy to exist, every vote must count. For every vote to count, every voice must count. For every voice to count, there must be an uncensored public address system, enabling you to inform all and all to inform you, so all are all informed on Election Day. The card post as a paper form sought to meet that need. October of 2001, I did declare my candidacy for U.S. Senate to take this program nationwide. By 2002, the unfortunate realities of 3 fundamental flaws in our democratic process, that democracy is broke when fee speech replaces free speech. It's absolutely broke when that fee speech is sold at an arbitrary price. When I reached the 3rd level, that fee speech is not sold at any price. I saw the need to begin contesting the elections as I have done since 2002. Seek to do so the day before the election, which should have superseded the paper-door issue. It took me till March 6th of '03 to speak before the Board of Elections in Wayne County. The then chairman did agree in principle with my concerns, though did not recognize the board's authority to respond. Since studying, they do have the ability. And I've got 1 minute left. I did go to post office box and got this flyer. How many miles have they walked talking about the troops to protect your right to vote? Back in '08, people asked me who I'm going to vote for, Obama and McCain. I said, I'm going to vote for democracy and contest the elections. Our economy is healthy as our democracy. Our healthcare systems are only as healthy as our democracy. As a teacher of democracy, I'm a doctor of democracy. And I got a patient on artificial life support, hurting big time. Her name's Liberty. And her education is her medicine. I did secure the election protest. The elections are not decided till 2 days after the canvassing of the election. So there's 7 more days that a citizen can contest the elections.
Thank you, Mr. Pruitt. Anyone else have any public comments? If so, step forward and state your name, address, and phone number. If no one else has any comments, the public comment section is closed. Moving on to item number 5. Under new business. Setting a date for our retreat to start working on the
Yes, sir.
physical budget.
Mr. Chairman, we'd like to try to set aside pretty much the whole day. We may finish early, but I think we should plan on a whole day there. So whatever your pleasure is on doing that.
And you'd like to do that in January?
Yes, sir. Not good. Why don't you go ahead and speak up?
The dates that are not good are January 6th, 20th, 14th, 29th, 26th, and 19th.
What's left?
Did you say the 14th? That's the Lions Board.
All right, that's a conflict, huh? I'm sorry, I didn't write those down. Go ahead and give them to me again.
January 6th is the Board of Commissioners meeting. legislative goals, Cindy has not got on here, but that's the 15th. Need to add that one. Okay. January 6th, January 20th, board meeting days. 14th is Alliance meeting day. 29th is Gateway. Can be the 26th. 19th is Martin Luther King Day. And the 15th is Legislative Goals Day.
Okay, so you giving us dates that already committed?
Those are committed dates. Now, I just got another email from her, let me check that. Okay, now she's giving me some good dates, how's that?
That's
All
good.
right.
That's what I want to hear.
That'll work.
She's giving me the Fridays.
No, Friday's not a good
Friday's
day.
not
Not unless you want
That
to.
eliminated those.
Let them eliminate 5.
Well, I guess Saturdays are out too.
Yeah.
Well, it depends on if you want to meet in Carteret County.
What about the 8th, 22nd?
How about the 8th? How's that with everybody?
The 8th?
That's on a Thursday.
Yes,
I'm
Thursday.
good.
I'm good. I have a radio meeting that day, but we have one on every Thursday, but I don't make them all, so that's good.
I'm good with that.
I don't
Yeah,
have
I am
anything
good.
there.
Cindy, if you're listening, would you email me if there's a problem with that?
January 8th.
Now,
Where's it gonna be?
If I could ask here, what are some of the topics and goals that we're gonna be looking at on that particular day?
What I typically like to do is start off by going over what we set as goals for the current year and give you an update on where we're at on those. And then, then we'll see what's left from that, and then have a discussion of what are your priorities for the following year. It's really to talk about priorities, and then the budget should flow from that. So that's what I'm looking for is what, and we'll spend some time making sure, are there any new ones? And then kind of ranking what you want us to work on, and making sure I get that in the budget.
Where's it going to be held?
Well, I was gonna suggest, if y'all have no objection, I thought it might be good to try our Steele Memorial Library down in Mount Olive. We've got all the audio-visual equipment, everything
great.
there, everything's their own facility.
Yeah.
And,
That's great.
and then, they've got some restaurants in the area, so
I would recommend doing
I
that.
think the price is right.
Better see if Ed's better ask Ed if he's gonna charge us.
Yeah, there you go.
He's cooking lunch.
Not for the use of the library, just the access road to get in.
Are you gonna stamp our visas to get in?
Yeah, just get in.
I can see you out there with a.
Time out. Marcia says time out.
We need to check the availability before we decide.
Yeah, on Steele.
Yeah.
Well, what I would suggest is that we tentatively set it for Steele Memorial Library. Is everybody in agreement with that if
Yeah.
it's available? Okay.
Yeah.
And we would just meet, obviously, in that community room there. It's got all the audio-visual equipment. It's got everything we need. And, of course, and it's, we can either have lunch catered in, or we can go down a couple of blocks and have lunch there.
Are you, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, are you planning to invite the legislative group back in like you did last year? I thought that was a good thing.
Yes, we can do that as well, and probably have about an hour set aside to meet with them. Yes, they
Yeah.
might be, I'm
By
not
the
sure.
8th of January? Do they go in there?
We'll double check that and make sure. We do want to meet with them before they go back in.
Agreed.
But ideally, I'd like to have them in the afternoon, because you will have had some discussion about what your goals and objectives are, and then when we talk with them, everything will be fresh on your mind about what you want to emphasize with them.
I don't know when they go back into session.
We'll double check all of that. So we'll tentatively put it down for the 8th. I'd like to crank up typically about 8, but since we're traveling to Mount Olive, why don't we make it 8:30?
Well, we'll make it 9:30.
So is everybody in agreement with the time, 8:30?
Fine with me.
Yeah,
Okay.
that'll work.
And so if we do that, and just plan on setting aside the day, but we'll go as long as it takes, or as short a time as it takes to go through everything. But, you know, it is a budget retreat, but it's really, we're not gonna talk a lot of numbers, we're gonna talk about priorities at this point.
Any other questions on setting the date for January the 8th for our budget retreat? Any other comments or questions? Is that an action that we need to vote on,
I wouldn't do it until you know for sure that you're gonna be able to
or?
use that.
We'll act on it at the next meeting.
Right.
That'll be all right?
That'll be fine.
Okay.
And Marshall will have time to check all that out. Okay.
Anyone else? That's all of the budget amendments. Mr. Wood, your comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Bell?
let's ask Mr. Wood if he would to address the jail committee meeting. I won't have to do it. in my
Okay,
report.
I'll be happy to do that. You want me to go ahead with my comments?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, the first one, as John indicated, is I think we're making good progress on the jail. We're having meetings now about every 2 to 2.5 weeks with the architect. We are moving along with the schematic plan very well. We hope to have that back to you. I believe it's at the next meeting, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right? So let me go over the significance of that. On our contract, the way we typically do these, and that's the way this one's written, is that the schematic design is basically the floor plan and then what the exterior will look like. So if you remember on this contract, we divided it up between the satellite jail and then moving forward to task 3 would be the bigger jail. So what they are been working on, as y'all know, we wanted to get the satellite jail first because it can be built quicker, it's cheaper. We know now that it will fit on the William Street site, and so we're proceeding with that. We have pretty much, I think, ruled out the expansion over here because of the scale of the building and that sort of thing. So we're focusing primarily on the William Street site at this point. And they will come to you at the next meeting and give you a detailed presentation on the schematic. So the schematic will give you some idea of what it's going to look like exterior-wise. More importantly, it's going to give you a detailed diagram of what the interior of the building will look like. And just to refresh your memory, this is patterned after the one in Rowan County. But what we're doing is, as y'all recall, the law changed. Rowan, at the time it was built, you could only do a dormitory for 40 people. There were only, I think, 2 or 3 larger counties in the state that were authorized to do a 64-bed dormitory. That law was changed to take that population figure out. So every county can now do dormitories up to 64 people in a dormitory. So what we're looking at is 3 of those 64-bed dormitories, a fourth wing that looks on the exterior like those dorms would actually be with separate cells. And we would have, I believe it's 25 to 26 cells there instead of the 64 on that. So the total is somewhere around 218 to 220 something cells there. But we'll have the complete layout for you. And the significance is that we would need your vote to proceed on to detailed design and contract documents and specifications. So this is a critical juncture, and I want to stress that to you. When you come in at the next meeting, once we go over in detail the schematic, if anybody has any questions on it, we need to get those resolved that day, if at all possible, vote on it, and then it's pretty well locked down at that point what it's going to look like and what the interior is going to be. So this is the critical vote in terms of what you're going to do, because it will denote the spaces, how big it's going to be, how it will lay out on the lot. They're going to give you a site diagram on that as well. It'll show you what it's going to look like visually. And at that point, if you have objections to it, that's the time to come forward with those, because it's going to cost a lot of money if we go beyond that and then we start making substantial changes in the layout. So the schematic design phase locks in the interior layout and what it's gonna look like. And by definition, when you lock down the interior, you're locking down how many spaces we're gonna have. So I just want to stress that to you, and then if you vote on that, then we're authorizing them at that point to move forward with the final portion of that task 2, which is full design plans in detail, all the electrical, plumbing, HVAC, everything. And full contract documents and specifications so that we can go out for bid. And that should be sometime in the spring.
This is a reminder to people that's listening, the citizens. The 26 sales, individual sales, they are double occupancy.
Well,
Right.
I'm sorry, it's 26 total, but that's counting the double occupancy.
Okay, all right. And so the first phase, we're building for how many inmates can we hold on the first phase?
I believe it's about 218, if I remember correctly.
Okay, I just want to make that clear for transparency to the citizen. And
Which is actually bigger than our 200 inmate current jail.
Yeah.
And you will be staffing it with far less people.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Mr.
I
Bell.
think we need to clear up the direct and indirect supervision, so that won't tie us up at the,
That's right.
Right.
Yeah, let me go over that. Y'all recall that on these jails we looked at, that there's direct supervision and there's indirect supervision. Indirect supervision is when they're in that control room or control tower outside the walls of the confinement area of the dormitory. Direct supervision is when they're in the room, they're in the dormitory with the inmates. And what we're proposing to do is to design this for indirect supervision. Because if you don't put that control room in at the start, then you can never go back. If we do this, we're also planning to stub out some connections into the dormitory areas where if we decided to move to indirect supervision for one or more of those dorms, for a small amount of money, we could do that. So that's what the committee has been looking at with the architect, and that's our recommendation to you. So, John, is there anything you want to add to that?
no, that's, you covered it
Okay.
real good. Thanks.
And the sheriff's preference at this point is he would like to go indirect supervision.
And that's for safety reasons.
Yeah, and the key is direct supervision. Our employee is in the dormitory with the inmates. Indirect, they're not. And they're controlling it by line of sight, just as you saw at the Rowan County Jail. Okay. John, is there anything that I need to
I
cover?
would just
else?
like to also stress that you have a staffing problem when you go direct supervision. You can't get many people that want to go in those dorms with all those inmates, so
Right.
indirect is the way to go.
Okay. So we'll have that on the 18th, so we're coming at a critical juncture here. And I just want to say, I think the committee has done a really good job on this. We're very pleased with the service we're getting from the architect. We have meetings, and every 2 weeks they come back. They've gone over all of the changes that we've asked for. They've given us excellent recommendations, and we've had good discussions on all these key points. So we think we're coming to you with a good product. And they will, as I said, they'll make a full presentation to you. But I just can't urge you enough that if you're not ready, then don't vote for it. And if we need to look at some things more, we'll do that. Because this is the critical decision going forward on it. And the only other thing is how to finance it, and Pam and I are working on that, and we'll have a recommendation for you on that shortly as well.
Mr. Dodd.
I want to clarify in my mind, and my understanding on the design, the staffing is actually less
Yes.
by going with
the indirect versus the direct.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
I believe it is,
It is.
because if you're going direct, you've got to have more people there in case something goes down, and you've got to extricate that person.
So I think the committee, and I applaud the committee for their efforts to make sure that we not only are getting a good design, but an efficient design in regards to the operation, the manpower necessary.
Right.
So it'll be less expensive to operate going forward.
That's right.
Okay.
And if you recall, when we interviewed Mosley, they made the point that the most critical cost on this jail, believe it or not, is not the capital cost, it's the ongoing operating cost. And so their layouts are designed to minimize the staffing requirements. And that's what we want as well.
So, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
By the way, just real quickly, I believe that in this particular case, we have picked the right architectural firm.
Yeah.
This, Mosley is just incredible to work with. They've reacted efficiently and timely to everything that we've asked, and I feel good about this project moving forward.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Anyone else?
And just to add on to that, and at a reasonable cost as well.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it on the jail. Just wanted to update you on the farm lease auctions. I believe that Marcia has given you a report up there. Is that? And
Yes, sir. She has.
wanted to go over that with you very briefly. We were able to auction all the properties except two. And when you look at these, we're giving you this is a comparison of what we got in previous years and then what we did it for this year. We had two that did not sell. The first is the Goldsboro Bridge site. You'll see that it has, in 15-17, it has $0 per acre. That was a small acreage of about 8 acres, and we think that impacted that. So there were no bids on that. The other one was the Bryan Boulevard one. That's the one that was at Busco Beach. We never had used that in the farm leases before. We added it. There were no bids. We then lowered the starting price to $50. There were still no bids. So we just closed that one at that point. Now, subsequent to that, we seem to have had some discussion that some people said they might have bid 50. So, but they didn't do it at the auction. So at some point, we may be approached about doing a second auction on that property. If you did, it'd be 20 acres times 50, that's about $1,000 a year. So that, if we got the $50, that'd be another $3,000 here. I'm not sure that it's worth going back through the Goldsboro Bridge site to try to sell that one. So the way it stands right now, the property at Mount Carmel Church Road, you'll notice was at $206 in the current lease, which was very high. And remember, those were sealed bids, so the person went very high. That sold for $150 this year. So that actually went down, but that is a far more realistic price for what it was supposed to be. And so the net at the bottom right-hand corner, we got $781.60 less. However, if you go and get the $1,000, if you go back out and do the other one that for $50 an acre on Bryan Boulevard, then we would actually net out ahead. But the good thing is we now have a precedent that we will be auctioning these every 3 years. And we're squared away on that.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pate.
I just want to make a couple comments. This was sort of a departure of what we had done in the past with sealed bids, and I think this is a much more transparent way of doing this. And it was a bit of a learning process for ourselves and for the folks who were bidding on it. But in the end, I think it was the right thing to do.
Yeah.
And I've already had comments and calls from the farmer community that agree with that. And I just want to step up and say, I want to say that the staff who conducted this, you guys did a great job. Y'all really did, and that goes all of you. So, thank you for that. I do have one question though. That Goldsboro Bridge site, do we have any idea what that's worth on the tax records?
We can get it. I don't offhand, but we can
I'm
get
just
that.
curious.
Okay.
Because it's such a small parcel, comparatively to the others, I just wondered.
Okay.
And also that parcel has stipulations. I mean, it's right there at the Goldsboro Battleground site, and one of the stipulations is that the crop has to be off of it by a certain date so they can use it for parking and all, for the reenactment. And so really, with the stipulation and all, it kind of had a disadvantage to start with.
That's right. The one other thing I wanted to point out is, while the one on Mount Carmel went down, there was a significant increase on the bottom one, US 117 alternate. That was at $135 the last 3 years. It's now going to $170, and there was quite a bit of competition on that one. And then the other one that went up fairly good is the old Mount Olive Highway property, which went from $135 to $150. So as you can see, the highest amount that we got on any of it was $170. Okay.
Sure.
And that's pretty much the report. I just want to echo what Bill said. I thought Marcia and Noel and Pat Garner all did a good job on it.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor.
I want to ditto that also, because I was over in the other side with Wayne Alley and Barbara watching it, and it was held professionally. Everything was orderly. You could tell everyone was prepared, and it went off really well. Having said that, there's been some discussion that maybe on this Bryan Boulevard, if the county is thinking about going into the solar farm business, this might be an opportunity.
Might be.
Because we have talked about in the past, and it's been brought up about the possibility of the county doing something for energy efficiency to supply for our building, for our county buildings. And I'm not pushing that. I'm just saying that's not totally out of the realm.
Right. Well, the whole idea of this was to utilize this property and get a return for the taxpayers, so.
Yeah.
And also, I mentioned, a possibility, the location where it's at now, it was in the flood buyout.
That's right.
Seeding it in timber, it would be a long-range investment.
Right.
But you could seed it and, 20 years, 25 years from now, you could thin it, and then another 15 years you could harvest the timber.
Right.
So that's just a thought. It wouldn't be a quick return, but it would be a long-term investment.
Well, I think those are two good ideas we can certainly take a look at going forward on it. Well, that's the farm leases. I just wanted to report to you, I've completed all the interviews for the assistant county manager, and we're in a negotiation process now. So I should be able to make an announcement shortly on that. We are now advertising the HR director job. We've done a salary survey on that to see what that position should pay, and we'll be putting that in there as well. We filled the payroll supervisor job internally, and so we promoted one of our people in finance to that, and now Pam will be advertising to fill that slot, to backfill that.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Doherty.
could I go back to the HR director? Have you determined the salary range yet, or are you going to be announcing what that salary range is, or?
It'll be in the advertising, but I'll make y'all aware of it.
Okay.
Okay. On the radio system, just wanted to give you an update. The chairman and I went out the other day, looked at the West Tower site. The footings have been dug, the rebar's been placed. They're ready to form it up and pour the concrete. The good news is that site is so good that we're only having to go about 4 to 4, maybe 5 feet in height on that base. So when you have good soils, you save considerably on that. The other place we save money on that site, just to remind you, is it already has a driveway going into the business, so we didn't have to construct a road either. So that site has turned out to be excellent for us. The chairman made a good suggestion. We've looked into it. We're going to have there, of course, the soil we dug up is pretty good soil. And I've talked to Kendall Lee about it, and also Tim Rogers. Kendall agrees it would be good soil to put on the William Street property. So Tim Rogers actually has the equipment we need to move that out at the landfill. So I've talked to him about, he thinks within a day's period of time, they can move that soil to the William Street site. So we're going to pass that on to the architect and engineer on the jail project and make them aware of it and tell us where do they want it stockpiled and when, and we'll move that on site.
So you're gonna pay for this dirt
To be
from the
moved.
site?
Well, it's actually our dirt.
I know, but you're
Okay.
gonna pay the radio system back.
I got to think about that.
Just kidding.
But seriously, you make a good point. I got to think about that. One's the landfill and one's the general fund. We'll work that out. But all kidding aside, all it will take is our manpower and equipment, and we can move that dirt over there. Checking that to make sure we take it from an area so that it's the proper type of soil for that. So we're going to save some money there, and again, we'll have Tim and his people, obviously, they'll move. And when we demolish the existing building out there, we can have them bring dirt with one load and take the demolished material to the landfill on the back load, is what we'll, but we've got to bring the building down first.
Are we gonna try to sell steel out of it, or?
We're going to get a recommendation from the architect on that as to what's salvageable and what isn't.
Okay.
But yeah, if anything that we could, get a reasonable price for, we'll do that. I will tell you that Tim takes crushed brick. When we take brick in as demolition material, we can run that through a crusher. He actually uses that to construct our temporary roads going into and out of the landfill. So he saves us money on that. He's a very frugal guy. And so we've already talked about that as well.
Mr. Mayor?
Going back to the two towers, are both of those towers complete? Is that right?
No.
No, the west side, they either poured the concrete yesterday or going to do it today.
Right.
I think they poured it yesterday.
I believe that's right, but that has to cure out.
Yeah,
Once that
okay.
cures out, then we'll be able to erect the tower.
There's a 7-day curing period. If it passes, fine, and then I think then the next one is 14 days, but.
Okay, but the west tower, is that the one you're talking about?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, the east tower, you
The
already.
east ready. It's ready.
Okay, you got,
Yeah.
that's the one you said you had power to, is that right?
Yeah, it's ready.
Okay.
Yeah, all we
I
wait
was
for to
thinking
get the west
I was
tower up
thinking you
so
were
we can
including
flip
both
the
of them, but
switch.
it's only one, okay.
Right. Once we finish the west one, we're able to bring them both up. And they have to be, I call it dialing it in, but it's a simulcast system, so everything's got to work in conjunction with, all the towers have to work in conjunction with each other. So you can't bring one up and then bring the other. You have to bring them up together, tweak it, dial it in, and then we're ready.
And we're close enough that the different parts of it is coming together. They started this week. There was a process that every radio had to be touched to reprogram whatever for the new
Right.
system. They started that Monday, so basically the radios now they're fixed, so they'll operate on the old system and the new system. But they had to be touched before the switch was flipped to do it. So, when we do go, the radios will be ready. And that process, so that we're really getting a whole lot more done now since we're where we're at on the west tower side.
Right. So it's coming along fine. We're actually ahead of that April schedule at this point.
Let me ask the million-dollar question. When's the switch gonna be flipped?
Well, we had said that it would be sometime in April, but we believe we can beat that schedule now unless something happens with the weather we're not anticipating. And the good news is, once we get the footings poured, they start curing, we really don't have to worry about that anymore.
Well, and it's my understanding that, I mean, the tower's already
Start talking.
built.
It's
I
all
mean,
built.
you know, it's all ready to be assembled.
We think we can shave about 30 to 40 days off that schedule, but I don't want to commit to that yet because.
I understand that.
Until
I'm
we
trying to
get
put you
done.
on the spot.
I
Here's
know,
what I'm
I
trying
know.
to do. The sooner the better. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
And we are moving it just as rapidly as we can.
John's got a question.
You know, since he brought the jail back up, there's one thing that I would like to request, since the city is gonna make William Street one of the major entries when they do the highways into the city. We need to make sure that we get a good-looking front
Yeah.
on that jail.
I do want to report also, I forgot to mention this, that I've had a meeting with city staff about, we may need some variances on the front, because as y'all recall, if this is William Street, the property gradually goes down towards the creek. There's about a 6-foot differential there. So the closer we can put the building up here, the less fill it's gonna take to get that property up in the back.
Right.
Is everybody following that? And what we're dealing with the architects is we're gonna build up the pad where the building goes, and then slope it down gradually. So, there's a financial savings if we can go closer to the road. At the same time, we do want to make it to where it's presentable and not jammed right up to the line. They're not going to let you do that, but I think they'll be agreeable to trying to work with us as much as reasonably possible to try to get it closer to the William Street property, to the William Street, because that will save us dollars on the back end, trying to fill that in. So they're aware of that, we made them aware of it, and we'll be looking into that as we go into it. Okay.
I have one other question.
Mr. Mayor.
I'm gonna flip the switch the other way, John. We were talking about the radio system, when Commissioner Daughter brought up his question, and he brought up another one that I'd like to ask. We were under the impression, and we were told that the wet weather and so forth held up our tower construction, and I understand that.
Mm-hmm.
But during that time, the preparation of buying the radios and programming, all this other stuff was not held up because of the tower, is that correct?
Correct.
So.
No, all of that's there.
Okay.
We're ready to go. We just got to once you get the footing in place,
Yeah.
we can start erecting the tower. And, once the footing is in place and then it cures out, then we're ready to start putting the tower up. And once we put the tower up, then we can put all of the antennas and equipment up there.
Yeah.
And then we're ready to go.
Okay, so everything has actually been done that could be done.
Yes.
Before we
Yeah.
launch.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, that was my question.
And if you remember, the real holdup was this 90-day process for NEPA.
Yeah.
That environmental stuff.
Yeah, I remember
And,
that, yeah.
I think we shaved a few days off of that, if I'm not mistaken.
Close to a week.
Yeah. So, but that's been the holdup on this part.
Okay.
And that's why we thought we would have to go into April. But we are, as of right now, we're a little ahead of schedule.
Okay.
So if we can keep this going, we'll be in fine shape. And like I said, once you do the footings, if it rains after that, it really shouldn't matter, because it's in place. The dirt has been backfilled around it. The grass has been planted around it. It should be fine. And it's the load-bearing footings are in there.
And also, staff is keeping the fire service involved in the process of going on, because, they're antsy too, because they're wanting the system to work worse than we do.
That's right.
But they're being informed, and so they're not being kept in the dark.
That's right.
They're being informed on what's going on. And also, actually, on the West Tower side, the process is moving fast enough. The question was asked about a temporary service pole, and RCC says, don't worry about a temporary service pole. When they come in to erect the tower and all, they bring their own portable generators. Let's go ahead and, move forward with getting permanent power there. And and we're dealing with a different agency on the power, so it's moving, I'm gonna say, several times faster than the East Tower side did.
Yeah.
it's going back to about the movement of government in general, is that right? Is that
Well, I
what you're
think,
saying?
well, I think the problem was, as y'all know, we had a difficult time finding a site.
Yeah.
That was the real hope.
Hopefully, it's moving faster than that.
And like Mr. Wood said a while ago, I mean, the site, the East Tower site, they had to go and put 3 pilings down, 35 foot deep.
Yeah.
5 foot across. This tower site, which is the footprint of the tower, is what was they, something like 28 or 28?
Yeah,
something like
28 by 28, something.
But it's only 4 foot deep. I mean, that's how much difference in just the soil type is gonna save us.
Right.
Well, you know, excuse me, that brings up, you know, that's separate, the towers were separate from the RCC contract, is that correct? The cost of the towers, they were not included in the RCC
It's
contract?
included.
Huh?
It's all included.
It is included?
It's all included. Yes.
Okay, all right.
Okay. So that's everything on that. Two other things I wanted to mention. We're very close on all the fire contracts. As y'all know, we extended them through December 31. We think we'll be able to bring those back to you, if not at the November meeting, the first meeting in December. They've done their review. I think there's a few minor tweaks. Borden and I've got to look at that, and Wayne, and once we do that, we'll bring that back to you. The one other thing, I just wanted to let you know, we did send out the letters on the street lighting petitions, notifying every property owner. And I've had about 5 to 6 calls on it, primarily just wanting information. And so I think that process is well underway, and we'll report back to you once we get any petitions that have 67%. So that's well underway. I think we've done everything we're supposed to do. If we get any more calls, of course, we'll try to provide the information and see where we go from there.
I'm shocked that you have not gotten the petitions back by now.
They're working on it.
The biggest thing is that getting in touch with people. It's sort of like getting a bunch of commissioners together for a retreat, Yeah. Sometimes it's hard, but I do have some, there will be, the way it looks right now, there will be a couple of areas that are not gonna go.
Okay.
That's inside information at this point, but that's their prerogative. That's the reason we set it up the way we did.
Yeah, and a lot of these, like I said, were just basic information. I mean, one of the questions was, does everybody in all 6 subdivisions, do we have to get 67% of all of them? And I said, no, that's why we split it up, and he was glad to hear that. So, anyway, that's, I just wanted to let you know that's well underway. We're on track now. We're fielding any questions we get, and we'll just wait to see what we hear from people on that. And Mr. Chairman, that's all I've got at this point.
Okay. Any other questions for Mr. Wood? If not, we'll have the commissioners' comments. Mr. Gurley, you want to go first today?
I'll be glad to. We have recently met the Animal Control Advisory Committee and elected a new chairman. George Wolf would chair it this coming year. George has a lot of past history with animal control and the building of the animal shelter. And the committee is moving forward aggressively on some past issues, and meeting every 2 weeks to get some issues resolved and get some information to the Board of Commissioners. And I'm going to yield my time on the veterans' comments to Mr. Pate since he's our representative, but there's a lot of upcoming events, and I look forward to seeing each of you and our veterans at the upcoming events this week and next week. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Mann.
You want to break for lunch first?
Well, I just adjourned the meeting.
Oh.
Good one.
I'm actually in pretty good shape today. Attended most of us, I think, a lot of us attended the Goldsboro Country Club with the Chamber and Military Affairs Committee. We had an update on the protection of Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. And, I want to make sure that the public understands, and all the commissioners, this is a huge, huge priority in our county to help save and keep safe Seymour Johnson Air Force Base. there's a lot of things that this county is doing. We have the Friends of Seymour, we have the MAC committee, we have consultants that we have in the Pentagon, and we are trying to make sure that if anything negative happens at Seymour Johnson and Dare County Boundary Range, that we know about it before anybody else. This is an ongoing process that we really need, and we are stepping up to the plate and doing what needs to be done. Also attended the WCDA Industry Luncheon at the Goldsboro Country Club, and Uchiyama of America was selected Industry of the Year. You know, we have, and in conjunction with that, as you already know, we have a new Wayne County Development Alliance president that is going to be coming in a week or so, and really, I feel like she's going to hit the ground running. There's been a lot of communications already, and we're just going to have a little time that we can get to know each other. So I'm looking forward to that. One of my fellow commissioners here, Commissioner Joe Daughter, and I, we participated, and you'll probably mention this, in the Community Soup Kitchen Chili Cook-Off downtown. We were judges, so there was some really good chilies there, but it's like the head judge said, you will taste some that's going to be terrible. I said, well, I didn't taste any that was terrible, but there was some that I didn't particularly care for. But I can say this: it was a big event. There was a lot of people there, wasn't there?
Sure was.
It's good participation in downtown Goldsboro. Also attended, because of our last commissioner meeting, I believe I couldn't attend the MPO meeting, which is the TAC meeting here in Goldsboro, and we had an update on the side, so to speak, with the TAC people. Reviewed the scoring of transportation priorities here in Wayne County, and I always do this, and I still will. I'm still protesting the DOT formula that they're using to set priorities. If it count, and of course, Mr. Connie Price and our planner and others been in, and you know, the staff, everybody. I think Ms. Marcia and Pam and everybody's been involved, and I certainly appreciate the cooperation in getting that done. I also wanted to say, at the meeting the other night, I want to say those commissioners that did attend, I appreciate you being there, for your support. You know, we have districts that we supposedly represent, but in addition to that, all of us represent the whole county. All of us do, not just our district. So I feel good about moving forward, and we can get this done. We'll move on to the next project. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Darn.
That was a different experience for me, being a judge. I was hoping they'd have me in a robe, you know, but at any rate. And you're right, you did come prepared. You had a pocket full of Rolaids. I did not have any of those.
I did.
I got a quick question.
Yeah.
Chili is primarily a Spanish-based food, you know, south of the border. Can either one of y'all speak Spanish?
Anyone do what?
How important it chose to be a
I had no idea it had anything connotations with Spanish. I mean, chili, but anyway, I enjoyed it. And it was for a great cause, really. Let me talk about transportation. I attended a meeting over in Kinston highlighting the United States Transportation Secretary Fox, who's, by the way, from Charlotte. He was there along with Congressman Butterfield. Now, both were extremely positive in their comments regarding interstate highways in eastern North Carolina. They recognize that eastern North Carolina, because by Jones, designate Winslow well from way to Moorhead as future interstate highways. Now, that bill's been introduced. We have Senate. We go, and that is, we didn't say anything about that. It's about like a football game, though, in my mind, and that is that once it's over with, then we've got to come together. And we've got to do things that are in the best interest of our citizens and our communities and our nation. And I'm urging us all to reach out to Senator Hagan and ask her to introduce this legislation this year so that we can get it passed. Because beginning next year, these bills are dead. They've got to start all over again. So I'm hoping that we can get the Senate to actually have this be passed, President to sign. Critically important that we get these interstates. Let's all together on this. The meeting out here in regards to the area lights, this is what it's really about. And that is, it's reaching out to its citizens and doing something that they want done. It gives the destiny in their hands. And it's something that could not be accomplished in any other way. And I think that's remarkable that we've done this. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Bell.
Okay, Mr. Woods already gave my jail report. Did a good job, Mr. Woods. Thank you. Had the East Point meeting last week, and let me say this first. I recused myself from a meeting that they was having concerning Wayne County about the funding and everything. So they're gonna send a letter. I don't know what's in the letter or what the request is being made, so just so when you get it, you'll know that you have a little heads up on that. They are giving training out to the local law enforcement about how to handle a mental patient. And what they did, we voted to have East Point to pay for this year. This is the first time that they have paid for it. The counties usually pay for training their law enforcement agencies. But this year, East Point is going to take care of that because they want the people to be able to know how to handle these patients whenever they run into them on the street. So in addition to that, there's been an increase in some costs as far as our Medicaid, what we have to contribute to Medicaid. And East Point is dealing with that the best they can, going to the fund balance, taking some money. And matter of fact, we have gone beyond what is required and are paying for some patient that's not even eligible through the Medicaid system because of the the necessary condition that these patients are in. There's a lot of mental patients out there that's not covered under certain funding, so we're having to look at that pretty close. But other than that, East Point is doing a pretty good job, I think. One of the best MCOs in the state, which won't last long because we're going to have this expansion, hopefully, and going from 12 counties to 36 counties, as I said before. The problem that we're having is getting people to agree to consolidate. That's the major problem that we're having right now. So other than that, that's my report, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Pate.
There's an advantage going near the end because most of the things I was going to talk about has been covered, but that's okay. We did have a DSS meeting on the 27th, and some good news that they're really doing much better on the NC Fast than they were in the past, which is really good news. And meeting most of their goals, so that's good to know that. And the more you sit on that board, the more you learn, and the more you understand the challenges that they have to face every day. And they really work with a difficult population. On the 28th, I attended the East Carolina Workforce Development Board annual banquet. I've been either on that board or a contractor for better than 25 years, so I've been to a lot of those meetings. I took Mike Haney with me, and he wanted to go, and he was, he enjoyed it. And you may not want to go every year, but this banquet, what they do is in awards where they give awards out to kids that have overcome a lot of barriers to improve themselves, to put themselves in a position so they'll be able to get jobs in the future. I'm talking about high school kids and up through community college. And some of the presentations were very touching, they really were. Salem Church, when we met the other day about the lights, like Joe and Ray said, is very true. I've had these people stopping me at Lowe's and at Sam's to talk to me about those lights, and they are just tickled to death that we have come together with a solution. I want to thank you for coming up with that for them, and I hope they'll go ahead and get those petitions signed as quickly as possible. And as Joe Gurley said down there, there's too many Joes up here. There are a lot of things going on with the veteran community right now. We do have that groundbreaking tomorrow at 2 p.m. And I've talked to Eli Panay a couple times this week. Walter Jones is going to be the keynote speaker. I still haven't seen the agenda. Have you received that yet?
No, sir.
Okay, I haven't seen it yet. I asked him to send it to him, but I ain't got it yet. And I know someone from the governor's office will be speaking, I think from the Secretary of Administration, is it Dandridge, is that his name? Ray?
I don't know, I do not have the
Then
agenda.
I think he's going to be speaking for the governor's office, and I know Mr. King will be there as well, and a number of other U.S. congressional folks have been invited to this meeting. Of course, later on, there'll be a dedication as well, so anyway. The parade will be, Veterans Parade is going to be on the 11th, and I think we've all received a invitation for that, and I think they want us there on the review stand by 10:30, I believe, if I'm correct. If you'll look at our website, we actually have the parade map on the website because it has substantially changed because of the work being done on Center Street. Then review and stand will be over here off of John, next to the church, I believe. That's where it's going to be. So encourage you to be there. Hopefully it won't be as cold as it was last year. And at 1 o'clock, same day, there will be at the memorial here, there'll be another service at 1 p.m. So if you can make that, I would encourage you to do so. I was unable to meet with at the industry celebration luncheon because I had a coalition Veterans Advisory Board meeting at the same time, and we were discussing the parades. That I was unable to attend that, and I just can't be everywhere all the time. So basically, that is my report. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Camarda.
Well, I'll go back over the different meetings that I think we've all been to relating to industry celebration and so forth. A couple of things comes to mind. I could not help but, if some things just spur back to you, Mr. Bell mentioned some things about Medicaid, and I couldn't help but reflect on the fact that our governor has said several times in the last week or two or three that he was looking at Medicaid very seriously. And I thought probably after we got past the elections, they might start to look at it closer and closer as something of a profit that has come to pass. And with gladness that I see that he would look at the 400,000 or 500,000 people that could benefit from that service, that he's considering that, and what a humanistic thing for him to do at this time of the year. When I gave the prayer earlier, I included a couple of things in there, and one of them was words spoken and actions taken. And so I commend us here for the things that we do, and I would want to us to say a special prayer for the national leadership, that they do the things that they need to do, which has a great impact on our life. One thing I would also like to add, and this is sort of a forerunner to Mr. Daughtry's comments about having been over in Kinston when the Secretary Fox came in. I had the opportunity to be made aware that they were coming in to the Mount Olive Airport, and was able to be there to witness the plane coming in, painted the same color as Air Force One. Not that large, but it was impressive to say the least. And I know that Mount Olive, and I know they're, well, if not hearing it now, we'll hear it, they'll be commended for having a nice airport, and there's been some good work done down there that we could have the opportunity to let the United States Transportation Secretary Fox be able to fly in down there at the direction of President Barack Obama. He came in and visited Impulse, which has been one of our longtime industry in that area, because they make some things relating to the furthest of transportation. And there was a lot of conversation and Steve Herring, he was in the newspaper, but you would have had to been there in person to witness an outstanding newsman interviewing the Department of Secretary of Transportation. He asked all the right questions. It was just a pleasure to be there in that environment to hear what was being said. And I had a chance to offer to Secretary Fox to go back to the president and let him know that Seymour Johnson could handle Air Force One. And so sort of unofficially, I invited him down. It just so happened that the undersecretary, who was also with him, and I have his card in my car, but I didn't bring it in. He had some ties to the Mount Olive community because his father was a pastor at one of the churches there some time ago. And the reason that I take the time to say this is, I would hope over the next 2 years that people in Wayne County who are much more familiar with Washington folk than I am would offer an invitation to those kinds of leaders to come back to North Carolina, come back to Wayne County to see what we have here, because you do not know where relationships lay that could have an impact on things that could be good for this area. And there was some good conversation out here, Joe, about transportation possibilities for the eastern part of North Carolina. And so that was very, very a worthwhile and just a magnificent morning that I had an opportunity to attend, to share that and a forerunner to them going over to Kinston. But they flew in Mount Olive and then drove to Kinston. So the plane stayed in Mount Olive for that term. I want to just say that for Mount Olive. And that pretty much takes care of my report, Chairman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. I'll keep mine brief. On the 22nd, we did meet with the town officials of Fremont concerning sewer issues again. Very productive meeting. Also on the 22nd, we had the State of the Military's affairs meeting. That was, I think it was about 3 meetings altogether all day. And also that was on a Wednesday. On Wednesday night, I had the pleasure of going out to Lane Tree to the retirement of Tom Buffkin, the CEO at Franklin Bakery. Tom has been here for about 14 years, come in with Flowers Foods. I was quite impressed with what Flowers is a big company. I was impressed with how much they think of Tom. They've brought in CEOs, chairman of the board, the CEOs of their plants all over eastern and southern United States. Quite impressed. We had some pretty heavy hitters in Wayne County that night from Flowers Foods, and we're gonna miss him. Tom is planning on moving. He's got a home in South Carolina, and he's probably gonna be leaving the last of the year. But we were blessed and fortunate to have him in Wayne County for 14 years with his leadership, and he also served for 3 years on the planning board. And I was quite impressed with the way they handled that retirement for him. On the 23rd, we did have a radio meeting. I don't remember exactly what went on. I think it was a short one. Also, I did have the pleasure of attending the industry celebration. Also on the 23rd. We had several meetings concerning the meeting with the city on the proposal changes in the fire districts. As it's already been explained, I think the route that we took today is appropriate, but we did have several meetings with the city and in the conversation with the local fire chiefs. Also on the 29th, we had another jail meeting. I think it went quite well. Mr. Mayo and myself and one of the other commissioners was at that meeting. It went quite well. Also on the 29th is when we had the meeting out at Salem Church for the street lights. And again, Mr. Mayo thanked the commissioners that was there, and I also thank you. And I've talked to several of the residents out there, and for most part, they're excited. I mean, you're always gonna have some little opposition, but, basically, they're excited about it. Also, on the 30th, we attended the, Chamber's 5th Annual Leadership Conference out at Lane Tree. They did a good job, which Chamber normally does do a good job, but, Mr. Shirley was there. Mr. Wood, you were there. Quite impressive. They did a good job. Had the panel answer some good questions. Also, last night had the opportunity going out to Lane Tree. Our sheriff did win the election last night, and he had a fantastic turnout for his victory celebration. Stayed for just a little while. And also, this Saturday, we're gonna make some changes in the electrical system over at the Jeffries Building. But I want to thank the staff for having everything in place for, so if we do have any emergencies, if everything will be taken care of. But we are making some changes in the electrical system because, as everyone knows, in the past, we've had some power failures over there, and they're taking care of it Saturday. But the staff has got everything under control. Also, this coming Monday the 10th, we have a ceremony that's going to be at Mount Olive Veterans Memorial and out at the college. All the commissioners are invited to that. Also, the parade has already been mentioned, the Veterans Parade on Tuesday of next week, and the wreath laying. And basically, gentlemen, that's all I have. Been a busy month for all of us, or since the last meeting. But unless anyone else has any comments to make, Mr. Bell.
Yes, on the 10th, I have to go to Hyde County, so I won't be available for that meeting. And number 2, you was talking about the chili that is cooking. I want everybody to keep in mind that Commissioner John Bell is the best chili maker in town.
Did you enter the contest?
Didn't enter, but I just want you to know.
Everybody else. When you're good, you don't have to prove it. Don't have to prove it.
You talking about speaking Spanish, some of that chili was hot enough, I felt like I was speaking Spanish.
That competition was for the non-professional, right, Mr. Bell?
Pardon me?
That competition was for the non-professional.
That's right, absolutely.
No, because I have my pocket full of Rolex, Joe was right.
Is there anyone else got any comments? Mr. Wood?
Mr. Chairman, I just want to tell you that on the retreat for January 8th, that's been confirmed. The Steele Memorial Library is available, and we'll provide lunch that day. And on the issue of the legislature, they don't convene until January 14th. So if we can invite them to this, we'll get them before they go back.
Let's go ahead and contact them so we can get them on the calendar.
You do that. Okay.
Anyone else have any comments?
Motion to adjourn.
Well, this is Rick.
We hadn't adjourned yet, so go ahead, Mr. Doran.
This is making a record right here now. 11:15. I mean, okay.
The holidays are here.
That's called having a great chairman.
But I have a motion on the floor, we adjourn. Any discussion? All in favor, show sign on the right hand.
Great.
George.